There's been a development today on the repo rate. Let me throw it across to my colleague, Devan Murugan.
Thanks very much indeed, Jeremy. While all of that was happening, the Reserve Bank governor announcing that the repo rate will stay the same. It was largely expected at 6.5%, which means your prime lending rate at banks remains at 10%. So with me, Bianca Botes from Peregrine Treasury Solutions. I suppose this was expected, Bianca, but of course no relief, and we are told that we might expect a hike come year end.
Absolutely, not necessarily year-end, but most likely the first half of 2019 with the inflationary pressure that's coming to market. Definitely not the best news for consumers that's already feeling the pinch with a weaker rand, as well as VAT hikes and an increase in fuel prices to be expected next month.
No relief indeed, and you know, just when we thought things were opening up with the economy, we saw the rand at 11.50 at one point earlier this year. Then the US plays the card, the dollar starts strengthening, the rand starts weakening. That's one of the risks that the governor mentioned. But he also mentioned wage increases that we've seen on the news agenda over the past 2 weeks. That's another threat to inflation and by extension to interest rates.
Yes, and not just that, but also to the fiscal budget. If you go look at what has been happening in the public sector, the fiscus is already under pressure. Adding wage increases to that fiscal pressure certainly speaks to the environment that South Africans struggling to actually pick up some GDP growth, stimulate employment, but at the same time maintain price stability and steer away in a manner from inflation pressure.
And I suppose, once again, the mandate of the Reserve Bank really comes in. We're at a point now where consumers could do with that little extra cash with a rate cut. But that's not what the Reserve Bank is here to do. It's here to maintain price stability. So using interest rates as an instrument is by far a very important function.
Yes, and consumers also need to understand that there is a very fine trade-off between inflation pressure and interest rates. So eventually, if the economy is not performing, you're going to feel the pinch as a consumer, whether it is on inflation, so the price of goods, or whether that is borrowing cost at the end of the day.
Yeah. So I suppose the lesson, or perhaps the advice from this point onwards, you're not going to see an interest rate cut, at least this year. You've got to be tight on your pockets and just watch your budget.
Absolutely, keeping a close eye on the budget, keeping a close eye on debt in particular, because obviously that is where it will hit you the hardest. But also bearing in mind that in an economy that is struggling to find stimulation, struggling to find growth, it's not all dire. I mean, consumer confidence is at the highest it's ever been.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there because of time. Bianca Botes from Peregrine Treasury Solutions, thanks very much indeed for talking to us.